Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. As usual, check out the Patreon. I have tarot and psychic development, and also what's going on in Utica is now up and running, all the crazy things upstate New York. Super excited about my guest today. I have a friend, hello, Lou, and he said, you got to check out Astro Laurie on TikTok. And I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, I already follow her. And then I was like, oh, she follows me. And then I was like a high school girl where I was like, oh my God, we know each other. And I reached out and here you are. How are you today, Laurie?
I'm good.
You hesitated on that question.
Good. I think today there are better questions, you know.
Okay.
Don't ask people how they are. It's like, who are you today? Anyway.
Yes, this year is blowing my mind. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in because your TikTok, what I love is you're so accurate, but also you name names. You're so spot on. I mean, obviously you're really a mix of astrology and psychic ability, but how did you get started in astrology?
Actually, I'm going to correct you on that. Well, okay. Yes, I am psychic, but the reason I'm very accurate is because I'm a real astrologer. I was made to not use my psychic and intuitive abilities as a young student.
Really?
Back in the 90s, absolutely, because astrology is a discipline.
You know,
and it is math and precision. And that is why I'm accurate. The intuition and the being psychic tells me you should really go look at Merritt Garland's chart.
I was just going to say that. And by the way, this folks know I tape way ahead. Somehow we're taping this in July, and this is going to come out in September. So I'm going to, if she's making predictions there that are right on, but you go, that happened before. That's why. I saw you name him and say, on this date, he will do this. And I was like, wow.
Yes, I believe he will be making multiple, and we'll find out after listening to this. People can tell me, well, you got it wrong or you got it right. But I believe at the end of July, early August, he will be making announcements that pretty much stop traffic in this country. And I think there's probably more than one. So... and I don't know what they are. I just know that he's going to be making big announcements. So,
but to tell people to watch one person, I admire that because I go out on a limb, and I'm not always right, but I always think you got to go out on a limb. So, I do. You know, it's funny. This is why I always look at astrology, but it's school. It's really hard. How did you begin with that?
It is really hard. I fell into it. Astrology found me. I needed to know things about myself. I was, you don't get into what we do for no reason, right? It doesn't matter what modality. And so I was looking for answers, as one does. And hang on, there's children there. I was. It's okay. That's how I felt, though, the way that one little girl screamed. But life was kind of messy, and I was trying to find out how to clean it up. And I found a message board online, and I was in the Middle East. And astrology was illegal in the country.
Well, now, hold on. What were you doing in the Middle East?
I was married to my college sweetheart.
Oh, holy cow. We have to hang out someday. I am fascinated with the Middle East. I want to go to Iran so bad. I know it's not the right time, but wow. Where did you live in the Middle East?
I lived in Bahrain.
Oh my God.
Which is a little tiny country. If somebody's been in the Navy, they'd know where it is because the U.S. Fifth Fleet is stationed there. But my college sweetheart was from Bahrain. And we were just young. Let's put it that way. We had two beautiful children. So, but the internet was new. I am a geek, and I would help people with the computers at the first internet cafe there, and in exchange for time on the internet. And I fell onto a message board owned by Jonathan Keener, who was a very famous British astrologer.
Wow.
And I just asked a simple question. Am I a Cancer or a Leo? All these books say one thing and the other. This is the most imprecise nonsense I've ever seen in my life. And an Australian guy named William, his name is William Mason. He basically said, "Hey, I'll look at your chart. The book you can't really say unless you know what day, because imprecise calendars, etc." And he read my chart and he emailed me, basically, and I read it, and my hair stood up on the back of my neck. I was just like, how could anyone know that about me without knowing me? He couldn't read my body language. He couldn't see me. This is 1995. There was no picture of me to upload because that would have taken 10 hours. And in part of his email, like at the end, he said, "You were born to be an astrologer. I'm going to teach you." I mean, it wasn't an option. And I get it now that I'm an astrologer. If I would have seen my chart, I would have said, "I'm going to teach you too." But at the time, I was like, well, I'll debunk it.
Great.
Yeah. There's this weird, but yeah.
Do you do Vedic, or what sort of brand of astrology do you do?
I purposely chose not to do Vedic as a young astrologer because, believe it or not, cultural appropriation is something we've known about for a long time. And I studied international relations and cultural anthropology in college, and I did not want to appropriate. That Vedic astrologers learn from a very young age in India. That they have a lifelong training, and in general, I mean, I think it may have opened up a little bit, but it's accurate. It just comes from a belief system I wasn't raised in. And I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be one more person taking something. So I'm a Western tropical astrologer. I'm a geocentric astrologer. And if you follow the rules and you really, really study astrology, you'll be accurate regardless. But you have to kind of astrology is full of rules because it's math. So,
so the big question, are you a Cancer or are you a Leo?
I'm a Cancerian.
Oh, okay.
I am, but I have a Leo midhaven. So there's a lot to your chart. You are more than one thing. And so, of course, that's why, because popular astrology, most people, the reason people started studying their sun signs, most people didn't know when they were born. They barely knew what day, let alone what time. And only the very elite had their birth records. And so popular astrology was what people could do,
Yes. See, you really make me want to learn astrology. You really, I don't think I could do that much memorization. I'm 56 and I'm having trouble remembering lunch. But I look at it. I look at it and I'm kind of like, if you start now, there was always, I think it was Brene Brown once said, people say, I don't want to start school because I'm 40. I'll be 45 when I finish. And she's like, yeah, you'll be 45 anyways. So, why not?
Right.
But I'm still so fat. And that is the truth. That's why people look at that thing in the newspaper. If you're a Leo, you're going to have a good day. And they don't understand the synchronicities or the everything that has to go together. And so he taught you. How did he teach you? Online or on the phone?
Email.
Oh my God.
Email. I couldn't even get books the first year because it was illegal
I have.
And so, and I had busted through the firewall to find the metaphysical stuff. Anyway, it wasn't hard. You just had to ask really good questions on the search engine to bust through the firewall back then. But yeah, and it was hard. And so I even developed something. I teach it now. It won't be open for a long time because I have a crop of students in there. But a methodology, because I was a Cancerian, and I thought, well, I should study the moon then, huh? And that's why my predictions are so accurate, because it uses lunar transits to mark the daily activities, because the moon is the one celestial body that's very, very causal. Okay. So when I give an astro alert, it's because of usually a lunar transit kind of pinging off the other celestial energy.
So if someone like me, which I just have a couple of strange questions for you that you probably can rattle off, or you can pass on them. But someone like me that would say have their chart out, or has that little app. There's a little app that shows you that really detail. I think it's called Astro World or something. It's for yeah, it's for people like me that don't really know what they're doing but can look. We should look at our lunar transits, or would they just confuse feeble?
I think they would confuse people to start with. When you read your horoscope, read for your rising sign in general.
Okay.
In general, because it's complex. There's 30 degrees to a sign, and if you're, yeah.
I already feel like I learned too much already. My brain is full.
And that's what I do. I teach this. And so when you read a horoscope, read for your rising sign, not your sun sign, not your moon sign. Read for your rising sign, because the houses of your astrology chart are areas of life. Okay. And that rising sign is you. It's your physicality. It doesn't represent your personality. It's your physical self, the body that incarnated. And so everybody has all 12 signs in their chart. Nobody has any empty houses. All of that is popular astrology. And yes, there's a lot of people who claim to be astrologers because we can. And very few people spend their life like a mage in a tower studying it. Yes. I got obsessed. What can I say? But yeah, I like time passages. To me, time passages is accurate. The pattern has exceptional interpretations. It doesn't tell you what the astrology is. I can see it in the interpretations. As far as, I know what they're talking about. But if you wanted just really good interpretations, the pattern. Okay. I don't know who writes their stuff, but they're very good.
I had that one and I changed to a different one where it kind of would let me see things. There was one thing online and it went down, and I think it was on Astrology Cafe or Cafe Astrology. And you could put up your chart and touch anywhere and it would come up like the signs, the degrees, like you couldn't learn from it, but you could oh my God, everything you needed to know was right there. And then of course it went down. So, that's how I am with tarot. What is every color, every symbol? What is it like? I'm obsessed with it. So I should, this is a really weird thing, and I don't know if it really means anything, but my sun sign is Leo and my rising sign is Gemini, and Trump's sun sign is Gemini and his rising is Leo.
Yeah. So is my mom's.
Oh, really? Because
they were born within a year of each other, and she's not like him. She's a communist, actually.
Oh, so there you go.
So that doesn't make you the same. The other thing that you have to study, and that's the same with tarot, right? Is energy expresses in a multitude of ways. You have free will. The thing about almost every single one of those people's charts, like Trump's or Clarence Thomas, I'm just thinking people I've roasted, even Tucker Carlson, they could have been extraordinary people who did extraordinary good in the world. with those charts. They could have equally gone a different direction. We all have crossroads where we make decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes it even ickier to read the chart knowing they chose their path consciously.
So that would sort of infer, this might be a philosophical question, that everything we do does have two paths. And it doesn't change your chart. You just have two paths. You can kind of go the lower or the higher or the left or the right, correct?
Yeah, or the middle. I always say the future is like a tree with many branches. And every time you make a decision, you're picking a branch. It doesn't mean you can't jump through the realm of possibility and probability. You can. Most people just don't. And I think there are points of no return for some people. I've just seen it, in my own life, people I loved very much who weren't necessarily making the best decisions, and in fact, my college sweetheart, just remembering a day I said, hey, you shouldn't go out today. You should stay home. You've been doing this too much. It's going to be hard to stop if you keep going. And they looked at me straight in the eye and walked right out that door and made decisions they couldn't reverse. And I think sometimes, that's the case. I think in general, most of us walk pretty much middle ground most of the time, at least the people who come to me. But we always have a choice. You're not destined to one outcome. And in fact, you can have a brutal upbringing and be an amazing person. You're not doomed. I know, because that's why I was looking for metaphysical help. I had so much early trauma as a kid that I wasn't even supposed to make it in life at all. And prove them wrong.
But it's also kind of how magical your life ended up. Oops. Sorry, folks. That was my phone. I didn't silence it. Everyone listens to my podcast and thinks they're getting a text message, so I have to announce it.
That's okay. My Discord's usually going off. I turned off my computer, thank God.
Oh, if it does, don't worry. And just yell pause if you need me to pause. This is very laid back here. Oh, as a matter of fact, before I bring this next question about timelines, let's take a break and we'll be right back with Laurie Rivers. Hang on, folks.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and Prithvika is my collection of consciously created crystal and nature-forged jewelry. Prithvika translates to of the earth in Hindi, which represents the natural earth-made materials I'm working with, along with my personal ancestry and grounded energy. Each piece is created through ceremony and science, and completed with being Reiki charged. I'm currently featuring copper mirror necklaces, which can be used for protection and mirror magic. My intention is for your new piece of jewelry to feel like an extension of self, to help bring your desires to fruition and to amplify the magic within you. My Instagram is @Prithvika, and my website is prithvika.com. That's PRTHVEEKA.com.
Okay, so this is something I want to explain this and keep it kind of generic. How a thing about me. I was going to do something, and it costed a lot of money, and I was throwing my tarot cards. What do you think? And they didn't like it at all. They didn't like it at all. And I was like, you know what? My gut and everything is saying, do it. And I put the deposit down, and the minute I put the deposit down, the cards changed. Like they went very positive. And I thought, did I switch a timeline? Was I on the wrong path? And then I thought, no, I'm doing this. And it switched.
I think, timelines are interesting because, again, astrology is about precision, but it's about possibility and probability. And some transits will show where time is wibbly wobbly.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So we're kind of living in a time of unstable outcomes. So like we have so many choices because we're going through the biggest change in 4,500 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like changing into the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
Or out of the Bronze Age. You know, I mean, this is a big deal. The historians 500 years from now will be studying this time period for the whole of humanity, not just, you know, the United States. I mean, there's a lot going on all over the world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, timelines can be reflected, or at least we'll see that it's there. You can't just look at stuff as good and bad. You know,
yeah,
because like even some of the ookier, you know, politicians, and I say ookier because that's the thing about being, you mentioned the intuition and being psychic, etc. naturally, and I am. And so when I do go into a chart, if I really want to get the nitty gritty, it's almost like I use the chart as a focus tool, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I'm in that energy. And so when people are like, read this one, I'm like, oh, please, no. They're gross. No.
Yes. And especially in politics, which you do so well, there's a lot of grossness there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before we talk about the changes that haven't happened in 45 billion years, one more thing about me. That's what's a little self-centered, right? Everyone wants to know about the universe. Wait, one more question
Absolutely.
about and again, I think this is a kind of too general a question, but I have Lilith, which isn't a planet, right? Lilith is an aspect.
It's a calculation.
A calculation in my 8th house. And I looked that up online, and it was like supposedly a big deal, or everyone was like, holy cow, that's right. Or is that a big overreaction?
I'm not a big fan of using Lilith personally, but it shows our resentments basically. And the reason I'm not a fan of Lilith is, and I know everybody gets into it, and you'll hear the astrology teacher in me, learn the basics first. If you just learn, I feel like Hermione, if you just read the book. Right. It's Lilith shows our resentments. The reason I'm not a fan of that is I'm trying to depatriarchy astrology, and anything that comes from the ideas of original sin, the fall of man, all of that was used to control us. Mm-hmm. Not one of those stories is real.
Yeah. They
were used before the Bronze Age. See, the reason I do politics is that's what I'm trained in. That's why I went to college, as I'm a political analyst. And so, and belief was a big part of my study, because I realized people's beliefs influenced policy. People's beliefs influenced their decisions. And so I studied religion and beliefs because I was like, these two things go hand in hand. Let's figure this out. And so, like, Lilith, I know she's a feminist icon because, you know, she's an angry woman. But she was an angry woman because of patriarchy.
Yeah, she was the first wife. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And those of us who have been first wives know all about that. And so do we have that vengefulness? Do we have that, you know, resentment? Yes. But what if we took ourselves completely off the patriarchal line and decided to be like, what if there was no fall? What if there was no need? And then what if that just became a sense of knowing who we are, you know, and just stand in the truth of who we are. Yeah. And then that story isn't as relevant, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Right? I had a comedy bit about it where, you know, Adam went to human resources and was like, hey, we got to get rid of this one. She's a little loud. She's, you know what I mean? Right. Like she's not following the order. Okay. So now we are in, it's so drastic. Like as I would describe it in tarot, you might have a different opinion. I feel like we're tearing down now to build back up, but yes. I'm kind of like, when is the building starting? Cause I'm getting really sick of the tearing down.
Well, you know, you're not wrong. We are in a global tower moment.
Yeah.
Tarot was my gateway drug. As it is for many.
Yeah.
I freaked myself out. So that's why I stopped as a young person. I was like, I think people understand being well-churched children.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, and I still haven't been in depths. But anyway, we're in it for a while. It's not over soon. We spent many, many years making the mess. This isn't just 50 years. This isn't 100 years. This isn't 500 years. And this is several thousand years of imbalance that is kind of redoing. And it's a lot. Now, we've been in process for probably about 150 years, believe it or not. It's just been not as in our face. I don't think we have 150 years. Well, we do, but that's the build. I think for those of us who won't be alive in 150 years,
we hope.
It's important to know that the next, I think it's going to be until 2028. I think we get some stability in 2028. Yeah, I do. I think we stabilize. And I think from about 2030 to 2035, we're rebuild. We're on the rebuild. We're stabilizing out, in the 2028 to 2030 range. And then we're building solid, and restructuring. And I think around then, it'll look a little bit more like a Star Trek society. And I don't mean space travel. I don't mean any of that. Mm-hmm. I just mean we will have, because of a variety of reasons, decided, we may not like each other, but we probably need to work with each other.
Boy, I hope so. I hope so. The not just the hate for each other, but like if someone doesn't have the same opinion, they're trying to destroy you. That attitude, which I feel like is coming from the uppers. All my beliefs are left, but I am like a third party. Like I don't see any good on either side. So I'm hoping.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm thinking I want to keep using the phrase peaceful revolution, but I don't know.
I don't think it'll be a physical war. I think we'll see some isolated violence.
Okay.
I do, just like we have been. We're very plugged in and we see a lot more than we could have, back in the day. And so with the internet and our cell phones, we see things collectively faster and they impact us much more than, 200 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Where you could have had an atrocity, but you didn't hear about it for 6 months. Yeah. And so we have so much more in our faces. I agree. I think the political parties suck, they haven't had people's interest in, and it's been games, and they've played games, and they are still playing games with our lives, literally with our lives at this point.
Yeah.
That part can be really frustrating. I do a lot of political astrology because it's easy to prove my accuracy.
Yes. Yeah.
And that makes people want to study with me, or makes me, makes them want to take a reading. It's not my favorite place to go.
It's a nice attention draw, though. Yes,
it is. It's. Whoops, sorry. See, my listeners will be like, "Oh, Laurie's in the kitchen."
I'm in the living room. I have motorcycles everywhere.
I love that.
Yes,
that's the Gemini.
Oh well, no, they're not mine. They're going by, driving me nuts. But I do love a biker guy. I will not lie. Even at this age, that never goes away. You still look to see if there's long hair coming out of the helmet.
Nice.
Yes. So this is a weird question. I'm saying that every time. I'm a tarot reader talking to an astrologer. I got to stop saying that.
Right, yeah.
So January 6th, to me, I think it was a client or somebody described this perfectly. Which it's amazing they want to act like nobody knew, because I did a podcast 3 days earlier where someone from QAnon told me exactly what was going to happen. So if Paranormal Karen got it, you should have it at the White House. So all of these is going on. The people are getting in. And then it was almost like it was like we were watching a movie and the director said, cut. And whatever was supposed to happen after that just stopped. Was that kind of how you felt about it, or did you see it going somewhere else? But it felt like there was all this momentum, and then somebody went, "Okay, we're done."
Oh God, that was such a weird day. And yeah, I think what was weird is didn't expect people to go into the building itself. I expected violence on the ground that day. Didn't expect people to go into the building. I had also given a warning, I don't know, I couldn't sleep that night, and I was looking at the astrology, and I gave a warning that if you're in the DC area, do not, under any circumstances, be in. There was going to be a lot going on, and the events of the day would lead to the downfall of a corrupt leader. And that's on TikTok. You can go and find it there, because I keep all my TikTokies up. Yeah. But it did feel like that. It felt like it was a very poorly executed exercise. I've lived all over the world and lived places where there was coups going on. I've lost more than one pair of shoes as a young woman running. And so even in England, the IRA was bombing the snot out of it when I was in college. So, it's like, I think we've gotten a little soft.
Yes. Yes.
Because I keep telling the young people, I'm like, stop clutching your pearls, put your big girl panties on, and let's go. You can't afford, but yeah, I think something was very odd with it. It felt unfinished and incompleted. I think it was just really badly organized, to be honest, the more that comes out. But
and this is sort of a personal thing, but me and my mom used to go protest the Iraq war, and we were so active back then. And right now, I kind of feel like it sounds bizarre, but there's somebody put up, it was a white lady talking about white women. Like, if you didn't have to protest till now, don't be so proud of yourself. It just means you didn't stand up for others. And I kind of feel like that. Like, why aren't people more involved? Or I don't really watch the news.
Social training.
Yes.
Social training.
Be good,
and it's
be
suburbs. Yeah. It's the suburbs. It's the post-World War II restructuring of our society. I come from a long line of ornery people. My great-grandmother was indeed a suffragette, and actually her mother-in-law, my grandmother above her, was an abolitionist. I grew up with this in my home, but most people haven't been. Most people don't even tell stories to their children or grandchildren. Yeah. I'm often floored by that, but they haven't gotten involved. I've been lifelong. Wrote my first protest letter to Nixon when I was 3.
Wow.
Told him to stop bombs because somebody had let me watch the news and I wouldn't shut up about bombs. And my mom said, write a letter to Nixon. So
wow. You win. I don't know anyone that. That's fantastic.
It's only because I had nightmares and my mom was sick of it. She's like, write a letter to the president then. I'm like, okay. And
wow.
She took me to the post office. I actually remember the day we took the letter because I wasn't as tall as the gumball machine. I mostly remember I don't remember we were taking the letter. I remember the post office and the gumball machine. I wasn't that woke.
Right. You had priorities.
But yeah, that gumball machine was pretty cool. But yeah, so that's why people are just waking up. And when people have an awakening, they wake up politically first. Then they go, oh, wait, religion. And then we end up with everybody who's suddenly awake and they think they know everything and they don't listen to people. And it's like, stop, listen. Some of us have been here for a while.
Yes. Okay? And then they cancel. They want to cancel.
I don't get any cancellations.
I'm not a canceller either. In fact, I for a while there, I was like, yeah, I don't want to hear. And now I'm kind of like, I think I want to hear everything. I think I just, and also that's like so non-human. When we cancel what are they going to do? Where are we, you want to go after somebody's job. You want to go after, they can't ever do that again. They can't ever do comedy again or whatever. What do you want them to do? There is no room for forgiveness.
Right. And we know from the past, when you look like all those people calling for the French Revolution, we're kind of running into the flip side of that. We won't repeat it. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes, right? So we're not going to go there, but we don't want to go there. Because in the French Revolution, it wasn't the top that got there. It was neighbors turning in neighbors. And we don't want to go there. And I don't think we will. I'm watching and I'm seeing a lot of mutual aid come up. I'm seeing a lot of people supporting people, at least in the crowds I run in. We're going to have to be much more collaborative in climate changes. Why? Because amongst everything else, we do have really serious issues. And I think that's what's going to drive us to have to cooperate. Human beings are having to deal with our mess. There's nowhere else to go. People get a hold of me all the time. Where should I relocate to? And I'm like, well, we could look at your astrocartography, and I'm going to tell you, there's nowhere on this planet that isn't going to be unstable. Yeah. Humanity is having to face its consequences. You can't just mess up stuff and move. And this isn't just, the great American westward expansion problem. Humans have been doing this from the beginning. And we are having to face that now. You can't just use up a resource and go to the next field. You have to pay attention. So we can go to juicier stuff if you want. I can get really serious and I get into Professor Laurie mode. So you can tell me boring. Let's move on.
No. I think my people are pretty deep. My listeners are really, and so we can go as deep as you want. And they're, yes. And also, I feel like it's, it is a little bit, I don't think everybody has to crash and burn, but it has to get hard, because the first part that I love is finally people are not watching the news channels. People are finally understanding that they have been lied to. And that's where, like you said, it's not going to be neighbor turning against neighbor, because I think that, you can see them try to do it. I saw a girl the other day, I'm vegan, and she was like, I was a victim of vegan propaganda. And I was like, don't even call yourself I don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, I'll say this forever. You can compare a meat diet to a vegan diet, but you're never, unless you see what else someone is eating, you're never going to know. It's a dumb argument. Okay.
Right.
Let's take a break and go deep with Professor Laurie. Hang on, we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, this is Lindsay Pandya, and I'm a recovering psychologist. I have over 20 years of experience in the mental health field, but I realize there's so many limitations. I know there are quicker ways to unlock someone's healing potential and traumas, so I stepped away from being a psychologist and took the scary leap to follow my heart and provide spiritual healing full time. I believe I have a unique perspective that can help you also step into your full potential. I provide one-on-one healing for trauma through shamanic practices, inner child work, shadow work, and so much more. My Inner Child Workshop begins May 4th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and May 11th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And all of the sessions will be recorded, so if you need to jump in after the workshop begins, just message me and I'd be happy to share them with you. You can learn more about what I offer and connect with me on my website at intuitivepsych.com. That's intuitivepsych.com. Join me and let's go play with your inner child and see how we can transform your traumas into treasures.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. I don't. Do you need a question? Do you just want to run? I'm fascinated.
You can throw questions at me if you've got more questions. I'd love it.
Okay.
I always say questions are my crack.
So about financial, because here's what I kind of feel like. I feel like if people aren't financially shook, they're not going to react. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. How does it look are you a cryptocurrency fan? Can people do okay? Do we need to grow our own food? Start anywhere.
I've been saying for years, you need to grow your own food.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, one, we've got water issues. Two, we've got climate change issues. Part of the water issues are a result of climate change. That's the biggest factor. And I was just talking, as a good Cancerian, I was talking to my mom the other day, and I said, you know what I'm proud of, Mom? I know there's at least 1,000 families that are growing food because they've listened.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get told all the time, because of you, Laurie, I started a garden. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. Even if it's some lettuce, even if it's some microgreens, you can grow something, because supply chains were screwed up in the 90s when they went to central supply, Yeah. And so, and then with climate change, you want to have some control over at least having something that you could trade or give. Now, is our economy going to collapse? I don't think it will collapse. I don't think banks are going away. I don't think currency is going away until Pluto in Taurus, and I'm not living that long. So,
okay.
That's a long ways away.
Good.
And I'm going to be 53 in 2 weeks. So,
happy birthday.
I ain't going to make it to Pluto in Taurus. I'll be lucky to get to Pluto in Aries. But I don't want that either. I'll be like 99 when Pluto hits Aries. Okay. I don't want to be 99. I don't want to live that way.
I love how you talk like that. Like, I have a friend that's another comedian, and he's not into the paranormal or metaphysical at all. And I was like, yeah, I drove cross country, and unfortunately my singing bowl and my harp all froze and warped. And he was like, we're really different people, because I don't have a singing bowl or a harp. And I think you're kind of like that. I'm not going to be around for my Pluto. How about you? Right.
Right. It's kind of like that. Yeah. I mean, it bugs my little apprentices because they're all young, cute things. And I'm like, yeah, well, your great grandkids can be named after me or whatever. Maybe I'll incarnate and I'll sit on your shoulders. I'll definitely be your guide. So I'll be knocking stuff down. But yeah, so we want to grow food. Cryptocurrency, I don't think, is going away. I've been arguing for years. It's in its infancy. And what messed it up was the whales getting involved. I've put in my cryptocurrency has been predictions have been pretty accurate. I do that on my Patreon. Because I give in my every 2.5 day forecast, I talk about financials. Right now, the financials stay about the same, which is volatile. Do not speculate. Because most of my people, they can't afford to speculate. You've got to have a lot of money, and you don't invest anything you can't afford to lose. That you can't.
Right.
You can't. But when the institutional money got in, that's what inflated it. And then that's what crashed it. We're watching a billionaire's war right now, So, yeah, stocks. I really wouldn't want to be a boomer. It's hurting people. Like, my dad is smart, and even though he had a stroke, he's still doing pretty good. But it's hurting our elderly badly.
Yeah.
So if you've got older folks, be ready to have to step in.
I just had to move to Utica, New York to help out. And we got my parents in the right place and everything, but it's still like I had to ditch everything of my awesome life. But I'm in the right place and it's all good. I know I complain all the time, and people are like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I just need to complain.
Right. It's just hard when we have to uproot our lives. I get that. I had to drive like a bat out of hell last year to Wyoming, where my parents retired to from Oregon. And I'm like, why did you move here? It's like, good God, my brother's in Portland. I'm in LA. And I'm like, although it was fun to sit and argue with doctors, and they're like, well, when you go home, I'm like, no, I drove here. I can be here as long as necessary. But if you are young or under 70 and you have struggled in life, you are not going to have it as hard. If you've ever had to make do, which a lot of us have. I'm young enough in the Gen X range that I never got the boom economies. It would be booming. I'd step out the door and it'd fall apart.
Yeah.
And so those of us who've had struggles will be fine. We know what to do. We know it's not about the lattes. We know it's not. And if you listen to your grandparents or great grandparents who lived through the Depression, or you've carried those stories onto your children, you should be fine. Because you know how to make do. People who've had a feathered nest and haven't had to make tough decisions are in for the time of their life. They're going to be scrambling.
Wow. I hate to say that I love what you just said, because I don't want to see anyone punished, but I feel as much as I see what's coming, I have no panic about it. And sometimes when I talk about it, I think people go, "Oh no, I don't want to hear that." And I'm thinking, no, because I'm reading for a lot of people and it's not showing up on their timeline that they're going to have trouble.
Right. Well, like I said, it's going to hurt the people. Like, we're watching a billionaire war. We really are. Just pay attention to who's getting smacked and who isn't. And then what they don't talk about is the money that you never hear about. The people who are all invested in Blackstone and what have you. And having lived all over the world, I used to sit with decision makers, and the billionaires. And my first husband was a merchant banker, and he was from a really influential and powerful family in the Middle East. And he married a leftist.
Well, a little controversy can be fun, a little bit.
Right? Well, no, he'd be across the room going, stop. And I'm like, no, I'm letting this man know what his hostile takeover has done to people in my country.
Woo!
But yeah, and so I can assure you there's no evil cabal making decisions. It's a bunch of incompetent, very privileged people who don't know what they're doing. It's a lot scarier. It's incompetency.
Well, do you think, like, I feel like I'm sure I'm trying not, a couple podcasts ago, I said, folks, I'm not going to get political. And then every podcast since then has been political. So I apologize. Right? I'm a hypocrite. I should have never said never. No, this is my fault. And I'm fascinated. So I'm fueling this. I'm standing here with my puffer, fueling your flame.
Spirituality has always been political, and astrology and tarot readers have always, astrologers have always been political. That's the root of what we do.
And it's a big audience then. You got a big audience. I feel like everyone upset about Ukraine. I'm like, yes, it's horrible, but we did that to Syria. You know what I mean? Like, where are the Kurds now? Anybody?
We utterly destroyed Iraq and Syria.
Yes.
Utterly destroyed them under false pretenses.
And left.
And as someone who has lived in that region, and then, of course, all the excuses of why we would do so from both parties, and then we look at what's going on in our own country. Yeah. Now, it breaks my heart. Because I've lived there, I've known the people, and my own children, were born there, and of there, and of course raised here, but still, it breaks my heart, and we need to recognize our and that's part of this time, with Uranus and Taurus shaking up our security. By the way, Uranus was in Taurus in the 1930s. We're on the flip side. Pluto was discovered in 1930 and it was in Cancer. Well, it's in Capricorn. We're on the flip side of that. I just did a video about that on TikTok. Listening a long time ago.
If I watched your videos, I'll learn things, right? Like if I watch them, okay, that's why I was thinking.
I'm always teaching. That's kind of my life path. Is teaching. And so I'm always educating. And so it's funny, I get talking about things and I'm seeing the astrology in the words I speak. And so you can call me back to saying astrologicalese if you want, because that was the other thing my teacher insisted on. He said, Laurie, you are a communicator's communicator. You need to learn how to translate astrologicalese into everyday language, because if anyone can teach, it'll be you. And I didn't I didn't think three things of it. I was 25, I get it now, and that's why I speak this way instead of just saying, well, we've got another Saturn Uranus square coming up in October, which is good. No, I say we're going to have bad supply chains. So, and we do, by the way, if you're listening to this in September or late August, make sure you get a Costco run in, or make sure you go to your favorite farmer's market, or make sure you've got your winter supplies. We've got another hard winter coming, especially east of the Rockies. That's been my thing. East of the Rockies, we'll see huge evidence in the way of storms. We've got some doozies coming after, in fact, the end of July. I mean, from end of July into the summer of 2023 is one big route of holy crap, what's happening?
Or hurricanes and stuff, right?
That's why I did the year ahead. I did my year ahead forecast in June. I never do it that early. I always do it at the end of the year.
I just did a halfway. I usually do a prediction, then I did a halfway prediction for July, because I thought hurricanes. In fact, they added a category 6 because 5 wasn't big enough. Yeah.
Oh wow. I won't be surprised.
Yes, and I think I'm literally the place where I hate because it's so hard winters. I'm wondering if someday, if I'm stuck here long enough, I'll be like, thank God I planted here. Weird jumping around questions. Heroes and villains, if that's a possible category. I think the Prince of Saudi Arabia is so smart and so he's my scary guy. Is he as bad as I'm thinking?
I haven't looked at his chart, so I can't speak from that, but I can speak from a really human having lived in that world. You can't imagine, if you've grown up middle class American, what it's like to be institutionally wealthy and powerful. Just like they can't imagine what it's like not to be either. And I think that was the real great thing about my life, is I've gotten to kind of float around. Like, I've been up at the top and I've had absolutely nothing, and in the middle, and I've gotten to know people, which is what makes you a good reader no matter what. You've got to know people. It doesn't make you like, oh, well, they're good at pattern recognition. Well, no shit, we need to be good at pattern recognition. That's what we do. But yeah, he probably is as bad as you think, and probably worse.
Yeah,
because they don't have any consequences.
Yeah. I love Middle Eastern men, and he's very handsome, but I'm always like, he's awful. Like, I worry. I bet we have a lot more Hitlers out there than we think, but it's just who's going to get the momentum.
Well, and Hitler, honestly, he was a bad dude that got used. Just like, I'm hoping Merrick Garland sings like a freaking canary and he won't, because he doesn't have a chart that sings. But I think he's trying to take not just Trump, but the other people, because again, these people were playing roles. They were used. They weren't geniuses. Hitler wasn't a genius. He had syphilis, for God's sake.
Yes.
But the people around him were the true dangers. And they let him, loose cannon. And Trump was the same. There were people, that's why these January 6th hearings are fascinating. Because they're going after people. I'm hoping they take out some of the money behind it, but I don't think they will.
It's funny that you say that, because on a podcast a little while ago, I said, I don't think, we were talking about demonic stuff, and I said Hitler wasn't possessed, but the possession was that everybody going along, just saying, okay, let's look the other way. And that's where,
absolutely,
that's the part that makes me, because I'm a comedian, I'm always the anarchist. I'm on the other side.
Right.
So, Los Angeles, okay for a while? My lovely home. Okay.
LA is fine. I purposely moved out of the Pacific Northwest 6 years ago now, down to California, moved my daughter down here actually, because it was just better for her. But also, I believe the Pacific Northwest may be in for some more, I think they may be in for more seismic activity than actually California will be. Trying to get my son to move out of there. I'm like, dude, get out of there.
I have so many, but sort of, I'll call them magical people or spiritual people that just migrated to Washington State, like one after the other. And I was like, what's going on up there?
Well, hopefully that maybe that'll prevent something. But man, I got the hell out of there. But I lived in Northwest Washington for like 16 years, and it was not a great place to be an astrologer. I had to hide.
I think all the magic people are hiding from the regular folks, so maybe that's why nobody knows each other. I'm very worried about New Orleans. Yeah. Okay, tough year for New Orleans. Okay.
I think anywhere east of the Rockies, especially the southeast, is going to get hammered by weather. They have been, is going to continue, but it's moving more east. Okay, so notice where things have been: Kentucky, Tennessee. I think you'll see Alabama, Arkansas,
Florida.
I think Florida to some degree. So those areas are vulnerable. And when I look at the weather, so, when I do the mundane astrology, which is just, weather, politics, etc. So I prefer esoteric astrology and people's, life paths and incarnation and why they came here. But, we live in a real world. And as real people with children and families and grandchildren or nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, we want to know we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I have one more question, only because I promised you an hour, and I would keep you here for 17 hours if I could. Okay. Any heroes? Like, I kind of feel like you said billionaires war. I completely agree. Like, I feel like Jeff Bezos is the greatest example of poverty thinking. He's never going to have enough. He's got to squeeze you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any heroes?
The time for heroes is over. As we move into Pluto and Aquarius, the time for chosen people is done. It is up to each of us to collaborate and communicate together. It is not going to be unity consciousness. We are not designed for that. But learning to work together in concert is the goal of that time period. It's a 21-year run. We get a sneak peek next year. But the day of the singular person leading the charge is kind of over, and we're going to see the repercussions of that. And so it's going to be more like small, tight networks of people, like French resistance cells interlinked, that's what's going to get us through. So as far as individuals, it's just remembering human beings are faulty. There isn't a paragon of virtue. And I think the New Age movement and the spiritual community just co-opted a lot from a lot of Christian theology of, be shiny and bright and perfect. And it's kind of why I'm not, I purposely am not. I swear like a sailor. If you listen to my podcast, there's F-bombs all over it. But it's... we are the heroes. Each of us will be rising into the best of ourselves if we allow it.
I love that. We're very shadow on this show. We're very, we are not love and light on this at all. But comedians are not love and light. So it works. So, but I just want to say, Laurie Rivers is my hero.
Oh, this is really fun. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Please tell everyone where to follow you, where to find you, everything.
Right. So it's funny. I'm in the middle, and since this is airing later, it should all be done.
Yay.
So not only I'm an astrologer and a deep metaphysician, meaning I've studied the arcane and the esoteric, and I'm like Gandalf. But
I love
after
it.
fighting even Gandalf the White after fighting the Balrog, no joke.
I have no Harry Potter references, so I'll just let that go.
Honestly, that's Lord of the Rings, but I did go to Hogwarts. I really did. I went to U.S. International University in England, and it's now luxury apartments, but it was used in the second Harry Potter film. So I really did. Wow. My kids thought that was awesome. But anyway, you can find me at laurierivers.com. And I also have a mystery school, a modern mystery school called The Awake Space. As we're recording, I'm just finishing it up. It should be open to the public by the time we get this out. And it's where I teach people how to train their Mercuries, reprogram their Venuses so that desire isn't a dirty word, to help bring in the things you need to sustain and feel secure, and then align your action, your Mars. There's all kinds of classes and electives, and it's a proper old-fashioned hootenanny.
And we don't we can start without knowing a ton, right?
Absolutely. In fact, the mystery school doesn't, believe it or not, the training the Mercury, massaging the Venus into, its health, and the Mars, it's actually a blend of neuroscience and other metaphysical training. And then astrology is an elective, because not everybody is going to want to be an astrologer. So there's things like, getting started with understanding your intuition, and basic training that gives people a good foundation. But the core curriculum is actually, I designed it without the woo. So I can get my doctorate because of it, but it's very woo-woo.
Good.
So I'm uncovering the woo in it.
Nice.
In this. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And follow folks. A great place to just start is the TikTok, which is
TikTok. That's
Astro_Laurie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you have the link tree on there or something where it takes to everything. But
the snip feed, it's snipfeed.co /astro_Laurie, LAURIE.
There. I will put it in the show notes.
Thank you.
You are awesome. You are welcome anytime. If you ever need promo, I see your followers. I know you don't, but you are welcome anytime. This was such a pleasure.
I'd love to have you on the Awake Space podcast too. I'll reach out.
Awesome.
I would love to have you as a guest on mine.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And my mind is already blown. I'm that high school girl again. Yay! I have a
Yay! So fun. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Hang on 1 second after I close out. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. We'll see you on the Patreon or wherever. Have a good day, night, whatever's going on, people.
Paranormal Karen. She's a spooky kind of queen. Paranormal Karen. She's an angel without wings. Comedian, ghost hunter, conscious exploring. She's a funny gal and a real woo pal. She's Paranormal Karen.